this is Kelly Pickler. You're watching Fox and Friends.
Well, her voice will just make you smile every time.
Absolutely. That's for
Kelly
sure.
Pickler, what a joy.
And his voice, too. Good morning to you, Tucker.
Melodious is the term people often use. Elizabeth, it's great to see you, Steve. Thank you for having me.
Great to hang with
Great to have you.
Both. And we thank you for being with us right now in the 7 a.m. hour. We're going to get right to that Fox News alert for you. President Obama officially laying out his executive order on immigration during a primetime address. The president did. The new plan allowing millions of illegals to stay here in the United States. Here are some of the highlights.
Background check, and you're willing to pay your fair share of taxes. You'll be able to apply to stay in this country temporarily without fear of deportation. You can come out of the shadows and get right with the law. I know some of the critics of this action call it amnesty. Well, it's not. Amnesty is the immigration system we have today. Millions of people who live here without paying their taxes or playing by the rules, while politicians use the issue to scare people and whip up votes at election time. The actions I'm taking are not only lawful, they're the kinds of actions taken by every single Republican president and every single Democratic president for the past half-century. And to those members of Congress who question my authority to make our immigration system work better, or question the wisdom of me acting where Congress has failed, I have one answer. Pass a bill.
Well, and today he makes it official by heading to Nevada to sign that executive order.
That's right. Even though, wasn't it a couple of years ago the president said you shouldn't be going to Las Vegas? He's going to Las Vegas.
He is on a private plane, by the way, just as he said he shouldn't do. But this is, he made the point again and again, this is constitutional. The Constitution grants the president authority when the Congress doesn't do exactly what he wants to make laws by himself.
Well, and it just seems as though that this is supposed to be of the people, by the people, for the people, but this feels more like of the president, by the president, for the president, on the backs of the American
But you heard
people.
what he said. They're not doing what he wants them to do, so, like, of course he has to make laws.
Well, sure, and what's curious is he did invoke President George Herbert Walker Bush. He invoked Ronald Reagan as well. He said, you know, I'm just doing what they did. He left out the part that they actually were doing things in response to a bill that was passed by the U.S. Congress.
It was.
There was congressional bipartisan support back in 1986 to do essentially legal status for millions of people who were in this country illegally, and then they had to do some cleanup stuff. He didn't mention that. Also, in addition to mentioning George Herbert Walker Bush, he mentioned George W. Bush last night. I think it's the first time I've ever heard him speak positively about something the former president said.
Right, and
but it was helpful to him politically last night.
When you think about the work permits that are going to be dropped now, 6 states, California, Texas, New York, Illinois, Florida, New Jersey, have 2/3 of the 5.2 million people who would then be eligible for those temporary work permits and competing with many of American workers who are going to need those jobs moving forward. Stuart Varney actually joins us right now, and I'd just like to broaden that too. What does this mean financially? What are the implications here that the American people in those states across the map, what are we going to be facing?
3 points to make here. The cost of illegal immigration per year right now is put at around $113 billion. Now, if you say to a whole group of people...
Where's that money spent?
That money is largely spent on education and medical services. Okay. $113 billion a year. Now, if you say to a group of people, you can stay, oh, but by the way, we're not really closing the door, you're encouraging another wave to come on in at some point in the future, which adds to your cost down the road enormously. Second point, if you say to people, you can stay and work if you pay your taxes, how many of those people who you are saying you can stay will, in fact, stop using fake names, stop getting paid in cash, and then go on the books and pay those taxes? We don't know how many. It might not be very many at all.
So you're saying you're asking people who've been breaking the law to all of a sudden abide by a law?
Yes.
Okay.
Is it in their economic interest to do that?
Let me ask a question. The president says they're going to pay taxes, but most of these families don't make enough to pay income taxes. In fact, they get money back in the earned income tax credit. So, in fact, they're going to get a lot more government money than they're paying in, no?
I think the taxes that he's referring to are Social Security taxes, which you would, in fact, pay as soon as you go on the books. But you're right. The income of many of the people who are allowed to stay is so low that they don't meet the threshold for state or federal income taxes and probably get a check in the mail in January from the earned income tax credit.
So we're sending more checks to more people who aren't even here legally.
That will probably happen. Plus, as you mentioned earlier, Elizabeth, you've now got increased competition in the low-wage sector from an extra, what, 4.5 million work permits which are now going to be issued. It's a very costly maneuver on the president's
Sure.
part.
But you know, Stuart,
I'd be proud to be your son.
Thank you very much. For tax purposes, obviously.
Tax purposes, yes. Adopt me.
That's right. If you read
Adopt an immigrant.
I told you we were a big old family here.
I've decided to change my question. Let me ask you this.
Yes.
Are you a little jealous that you stood in line to become an American citizen and these people potentially don't? It's on a temporary basis.
What do you say? Before someone like me says anything about immigration, you've got to remember where I'm coming from. I have been embraced by this very warm culture, and I've been accepted, and I am truly grateful for that. And you have to say it. I'm in a special position. I speak the language.
Yep.
I was educated on somebody else's dime, and I've been accepted in American society, and I'm very, very grateful to this extremely generous society. So before I say anything on immigration, you've got to remember where I'm coming from. I am truly grateful.
Yes. And we're grateful to have you, and I personally am grateful to have a lot of immigrants. My business partner is an immigrant. I just wonder why now, at a time when 63% of Americans are working only, it's the lowest in 40 years, why would you bring in more low-skilled labor when wages are stagnant and you have 90 million people unemployed? I don't really get that.
It doesn't make economic sense. It makes a great deal of political sense. I think the president wants to change the landscape of America going forward. That will be his legacy. I'm going to be pejorative, but I think the president is bringing in Democrat voters who will vote Democrat in the future. That's what's behind this, not economics.
And you said they would be contributing into the Social Security pot, right?
But
not able to collect.
Yes, they would get, oh, yes.
They would get numbers.
Okay, so they'll get numbers.
They can collect. If they're on the books paying Social Security tax, you paid into the system, you take out of the system at the appropriate time. Yes, you do.
Okay, so if you read the editorial pages of the Wall Street Journal, they are behind immigration reform. They would like to see more, lower-paid immigrants come into the country so that, it's the whole cost of labor. So going forward, wouldn't it behoove the Republican Party? Okay, the president essentially is blackmailing them. This is the plan until you come up with a plan. Why wouldn't they step forward and say, this is the perfect time to have a guest worker program, perhaps that does not lead to citizenship, or to secure the border? That way it makes it look like the Republicans are doing something, and they actually are.
I think most conservatives are on board with far more immigrant visas.
Sure.
Come over here because we want to choose who we have come into our society. So expand the number of legitimate visa applications that are coming to America. I think conservatives are on board with that. Case closed.
But why would middle-class people be on board with that? I mean, I get why it definitely benefits me or upper-income people for sure. It's a great thing. But if you're making $40,000 a year and let's say you're unemployed, why is this good for you in any way?
That's a good question. I think it
haven't
does
figured that part out yet.
It may not be.
It creates some economic growth because of expanded the labor force, and that expands total demand in your society if it is legitimate. That's how the whole society is helped by immigration. You do get more entrepreneurs coming in.
Yes,
people who start businesses, who climb the food chain because they're aggressive and want to do that. I think that helps society overall.
Operationally, though, states are going to be facing increased cost in terms of doing the checks, who's been here for the 5 years, making sure that all these tests are put forward. This is going to be costly for many states.
You can't do those checks. There's so many people, you can't do thorough checks. They'll whitewash this.
All right, catch Stuart Varney over on Fox Business Network. To find the channel, go to foxbusiness.com/channel finder. Peter, thank you very much.
Stuart, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Stu. What's your beef, Stu? All right.
Stop
it. All right. Heather